Hey everyone, welcome to the channel. Today we're going to do a general Aries to Pisces, Biblio style. But Spirit and I have decided on which 12 books to pick from. We're going to completely do this random, okay? It will still be Aries to Pisces. I will timestamp down below. It'll be for your sun, your moon, or your rising, or whichever planetary placements you are focused on at the moment. So if you're not sure what you want to focus on, check out what your placements are, okay, and what's going on in your life and what may match up with which placements. Like for me, I mostly am followed on, my spiritual path and, maybe just how to balance out life. Unless something major comes up with home or family or something, then I might check onto some of the placements related to that. So mostly I'm following sun, moon, rising, north node, and my ascendant, okay? But if family or relationship issues come up, I might follow Venus, okay? Or if money issues come up or career, maybe part of fortune or Jupiter or something. Or if some major ascension-oriented thing happens, I might follow Uranus or Neptune or something like that. So you elect what you follow, okay? And don't shy away from any of the placements you do want to follow. They could actually come together and create quite some insight for you. So what I'm going to do is we're going to use the yes-no method. My yes-no method dice, I typically pick up the purple one for that. I do have two purples, but this was the one I usually use. And it's a 12-sided dice, and we have 12 books, and I've numbered them 1 through 12 on my little cheat sheet here. And we're going to determine which book to use per element. Okay, so I'm going to have to take notes so I don't mix it up, okay? So air will get one book. All the air signs will get one book. Fire another, water another, and earth another, okay? And we'll go ahead and roll the dice to choose which ones these are, all right? So let's go. Spirit, for our air signs, Gemini, Libra, Aquarius, which book do you want us to use and get messages from, please? And thank you. We are going to be doing the Odyssey for air signs. Okay. That's going to be complex. Spirit is so funny. That is a more classic book to do Biblia with, so still tells a story. All right, for our fire signs, Spirit, which book do you want us to use? We have a variety. Dharma punks, all right. You got it, dude. All right. For our water signs, that would be Cancer, Pisces, Scorpio. What do you want us to use? All right, our lives in poetry. Very cool. So water signs will get poetry. Sweet. Let me just write that down real quick. All right, for our earth signs, Spirit, what do you want Capricorn, Virgo, and Taurus to read from? Please and thank you. Also Dharma punks. All right, you got it. All right, guys. Let's get started. All right, Aries, sun, moon, rising. Which page are we reading from for insight for our Aries is this time? Spirit, please and thank you. All right. I'm feeling 211. That may be significant to someone. Let's see what's on page 211. Let's see. Okay, we'll go ahead and read that bit too. This is from the chapter called Die, Die, My Darling. Okay. It's based on a Misfits song, although I do believe Metallica did cover it. Did a good job. All right, here we go. Take what you can from this, whatever resonates, all right? After a 2-day drive through the desert, I made it back to Santa Cruz, and to my surprise, Miko was there too. He had decided to move back to the West Coast. New York had been fun, but he was ready to get back to lazy days in the California sunshine. Joe was back from tour, so for those final days of my practice, we had most of the crew back together. We all hung out, going to the beach, sitting around, sharing stories of our adventures and joking around. I took some time and wrote out a mock will, leaving my records to Joe, my books to Vinny and Mika, and the rest of my belongings to my siblings. I asked in my will that my tattooed skin be removed and made into wallets for all of my friends, and that a fruit bearing tree be planted on my grave. My mom and I took some long walks on the beach at low tide, throwing the stick for her dog and talking about how wonderful life had become for both of us. I expressed my deepest gratitude for all of the love and support she had shown me over the years, and told her how happy I was that she had overcome her own struggles and come out the other side an incredible woman and mother. The last night of my year to live practice, June 30th, 1998, so that date may be significant to you, the night that I was supposed to die, I made a huge feast for my mother, brother, and sister, and Vinny, Jennifer, Joe, his girlfriend Michaela, and Mika. At dinner, I read to them my own eulogy and thanked each one individually for all that they had brought to my life. We all stayed up late, looking at old pictures and telling stories of our lives together. A little after midnight, everyone went home, and I went to bed. After contemplating all that I had learned and experienced in my year of investigating death, I died peacefully and awoke the next morning reincarnated, ready for the next teaching. July 1st, 1998. This is an excerpt from his journal, quote unquote dead, titled, "Nothing left unsaid. All has been done to the best of my ability. So much attachment remains, but it all floats in an openness that feels incarnations old. Through all of the searching, I have finally taken birth, and I see that love is the only rational act of a lifetime." Wow, that's powerful. Maybe there's going to be rebirth happening for you, all right? There you go, Aries. All right, Taurus, sun, moon, rising, and whichever placements you're following. You also got Dharma Punks by Noah Levine, okay? So if you want to pick this book up, you can. It is available. All right, Spirit, what do you have for Taurus at this time? What page are we reading from? It's funny, I'm actually seeing it backwards. 2, 6, and then 3 with the breakdown there. 263. That may be a significant number for you at this time. Oh, we're going to have to think of something else. All right, 236. Went too far. That's interesting. That may mean something to you, okay? Maybe just when you need a little extra, you don't, of something, time, resource, whatever. Okay. This is from the chapter, Death is Not the End, My Friend. So perhaps a significant ending had happened for you, and it may feel like it's all over, right? Alicia asked me to come down to Santa Cruz and be with her and Gage, Toby's son. I was crying so hard that I couldn't think. I was on my way to work at Spirit Rock, where I was supposed to meet with someone, but I couldn't remember whom. I was also supposed to be leading a weekend for a Rites of Passage boys group at Tasajara Zen Center, but it didn't look like I was going to be able to make it to either commitment. I couldn't even think about trying to teach or work. My mind was foggy and confused. Every cell in my body was in anguish. I told Alicia that I would be there as soon as possible. After I got off the phone with her, I immediately made several calls to my dad and Andrea in New Mexico, to my mom in Santa Cruz, to Vinny, Joe, and Mika. Mostly, I just left messages telling them what had happened and asking for some support. I talked to Vinny for a little while, and he was very supportive. It was so nice just to hear a friendly voice. I felt so alone, so overwhelmed and distraught. My heart felt like it had just been torn from my chest. I couldn't believe it. I wasn't ready for this, not now. Toby had been doing so well. He had been out of prison and going to recovery meetings and counseling, and as far as I knew, he had been sober for almost a year. He was so in love with his son, and every time I talked to him, he spoke about wanting to help start kids like I was doing. He was trying to volunteer at some teen counseling programs in Santa Cruz and going to church every week with his family. Not now. There was a few years ago when he was on the streets, and I was just waiting for the call to come, but not now. He had just spent the weekend with me a few weeks ago in the city and had come to a teen retreat that I was leading at Spirit Rock. I had led a day of meditation and a sweat lodge in the afternoon. Toby had been great, sharing his life's experience with the teens and expressing his hope that they would never have to experience what he had. The kids had really loved him, and it was so great to be sharing my role of Buddhist teacher with my oldest friend in the world. Just the day before, I had gotten an email from him, something about being a spiritual porn star, another one of his punk rock fantasies. I wrote back telling him of my love for him and encouraging his continued commitment to the steps and spiritual practice. I said that I'd been thinking about him a lot lately because of the meditation groups that I was doing in San Quentin. Thinking of the time he spent there, I was so glad he was back in my life, and I never wanted him to have to go back to prison. I said above all else, I had hoped he was putting his recovery first, because without staying clean, it seemed inevitable that we all would end up back in a cell, if not physically, then at least spiritually. He probably never even got to it. Or maybe he did, and since he was already relapsing, it made him feel so bad that he had killed himself. I would never know. My whole body was flushed with guilt, and the tears flowed out of my empty eyes, soaking my face and sweatshirt. I made a quick stop at work to let them know that I would probably be out the rest of the week, and drove directly to Santa Cruz to be with Alicia and Geraldine and all the rest of our friends and family. I tried turning my stereo up so that it would be louder than my mind, but every song, every chord, and every beat reminded me of Toby. It felt like nothing had prepared me for this. No amount of meditation, no amount of therapy, none of the spiritual practices or experiences I had had prepared me to lose my best friend. I felt like without him, nobody in the world really knew me. Sorry, Taurus. That just reminded me of a friend that passed. Because that's exactly how I felt. All right. I felt like without him, nobody in the world really knew me. It seemed like when I was 10 years old, I had left home and found my real family. The day I met Toby, I finally felt understood. We had been through everything together. When we were kids on the streets getting high, chasing girls, when we couldn't relate to our parents and they couldn't understand us, we always had each other. The first time I had sex, Toby was there. The first punk rock show, first acid trip, first fucking everything. Pardon the French. We fought together and stole together. We shared bottles, crack pipes, and needles. We did it all. Even when I got sober and turned into a fucking self-righteous straight-edge asshole. For those who don't know that, you should probably look that up. Straight-edge punk rock, hardcore. All right. That could have been an interest. That might mean something to somebody, okay? Taking things too far. But still for a noble cause. Okay, anyway. Toby was still there. When he was strung out on the streets and needed somewhere to stay, my door was always open. Even when he ripped me and everyone else off and ended up in prison, our connection was still too strong and nothing could break our friendship. We were brothers. I sent him books in prison. He sent me letters. When he got out and met back up with Alicia and she got pregnant, he asked me if I would be godfather. We spent 20 years together, longer than with anyone else. My oldest friend in the world was dead, and with him died the only witness to see me both shoot dope and teach meditation. What a parallel, huh? Okay. Now I was all alone, surrounded by people who I could tell about my past, but who would never really know what it was like. No amount of spiritual understanding or faith could make that feeling go away. I knew he was okay wherever he was, be it outside of his body or onto the next realm, but I wasn't okay. I was left behind to deal with his skeleton. I wished I believed that he was resting in peace, but I didn't. I knew that whatever his work was, it would be done, either this time or the next, in this realm or another. Beautiful. I'm going to leave it there. I could keep going. Follow your other placements, all right? All right, Gemini, Sun, Moon, Rising, or whichever placements you are following. We have Homer, the Odyssey, if I can get the glare to stop being a glare. There we go. Big, thick story. All right. It's an Odyssey. All right. We'll need these three. Yes, we'll need these three. All right, Spirit, which page do you want us to read from the Odyssey for Geminis? Please and thank you. 415. You have numbers 4, 5, and 10. That may be significant to you. 415. All right. Yes, there's that many pages, if not more. All right. This is from Book 20, Portents Gather. Okay. Hearing that, Telemachus strode out to the palace, spear in hand, and a pair of sleek hounds went trotting at his heels. He made for the meeting grounds to join the island lords, while Euryclea, the daughter of Ops, Peisenor's son, that best of women, gave the maids their orders. Quick now, look alive, sweep out the house, wet down the floors. You, those purple coverlets, fling them over the fancy chairs. All those tables, sponge them down, scour the wine bowls, burnished cups. The rest, now off of you, go to the spring and fetch some water, fast as your legs can run. Our young gallants won't be long from the palace. They'll be bright and early. Today's a public feast. They hung on her words and ran to do her bidding. Full 20 scurried off to the spring's dark water. Others bent to do housework. All good hands. Then in they trooped, the strutting serving men, who split the firewood cleanly now as the women bustled in from the spring, the swineherd at their heels, driving 3 fat porkers, the best of all his herds, and leaving them to root in the broad courtyard. Up he went to Odysseus, hailed him warmly. Friend, do the suitors show you more respect or treat you like the dregs of the earth as always? Good, Eumaeus, the crafty man replied. If only the gods would pay back their outrage, wild and reckless young cubs conniving here in another's house. They've got no sense or shame. And now as the two confided in each other, the goatherd, thank you. Why does that look like one whole word? Interesting. Goatherd Melanthius sauntered towards them, herding his goats with a pair of drovers' help, the pick of his flocks to make the suitors' meal. Under the echoing porch he tethered these, then turned on Odysseus once again with cutting insults. Still alive? Still hounding your betters, begging round the house? Why don't you cart yourself away? Get out. We'll never part, I swear, till we taste each other's fists. Riffraff, you and your begging make us sick. Get out. We hardly the only banquet on the island. No reply. The wily one just shook his head, silent, his mind churning with thoughts of bloody work. I'm going to leave it there, Gemini. Go follow your other placements, all right? Bye. All right, Cancer, Sun, Moon, Rising, or whichever placements are important to you at this time. Make sure to go follow for all your other insights as well. We're going to read from Our Lives in Poetry. This is actually a family collection of favorites, including some personals as well. So, I haven't gotten permission to list anyone's names out of this book if they wrote it themselves. But if it's a known poet, I will mention it, okay? All right. Spirit, which poem are we reading to Cancer today that will be significant to them at this time? Please and thank you. You have 10, 2, and 4. So those numbers may be significant. But I'm feeling page 124. Whatever's on 124. And if there's any imagery, I'll let you know. 124. Ooh, interesting. Ha! Oh, this is very cool. All right, it's actually a newspaper clipping copy. And it appears to be a story that my grandmother had written back in May 9th of 1943. So that date or numbers 5943 may be significant to you. Okay. It's called Telegraphic Terrors. Okay, I know it's a floppy book. Bear with. And tiny, tiny, tiny. When she was in New Britain High School. All right. A crisis had been averted. The messages shall get through, and the credit is due solely to the Western Union Telegraph Company and a group of capable and industrious young women. When the thoughtful singing telegram grew up into the great indispensable army message of business reply, something had to be done, for the importance of these messages required careful attention, and the great influx on their number demanded more workers to devote this careful attention. Casualties were being dealt the telegraph service by the drafting of many of its employees. Bear with, it's faded newsprint too. So I'm like, what does that say? Okay. Or by those who had shifted to vital defense jobs. All right, we're trying to read what this is. Okay. The situation became so acute that finally youth was called to the rescue. A plan was evolved whereby efficient workers would be trained, and at the same time young girls would be offered a fine, free business course. For a number of years, Western Union has operated few schools with the purpose of educating future employees. Since last August, this number has been raised to 112. At these schools, girls attended regular lectures and obtained invaluable experience on standard machines such as the automatic printing telegraph machines with teleprinters, that is, a typewriter-like keyboard. They not only learned how to operate these instruments, but also how to take them apart and put them together again without any pieces left over. In addition to this, the ins and outs of large city offices, the problems of small country stations, and Western Union rates and services are all mastered by these students. All this comes in 8 weeks. New Britain did not neglect this opportunity to solve the problem of the depleted Western Union office force, nor were industrious irises found wanting. Yes, that's right. 6 hardware city girls, most of them recent high school graduates, indicated their willingness to learn and serve. And these girls are by named. I'm not going to do that. They attended one of the largest Western Union schools in the country at Washington, New Jersey. And a good time was had by all. Good is used in the sense that they accomplished what they were supposed to and had a wonderful time doing it. They started their daily dozens at 8:30 in the morning, learning teleprinting until noon. After dinner, routine delivery, counterwork, and telephone messages were mastered until 5:30 p.m. Then school was out. A college atmosphere was not lacking either, for the entertainment angle was handled by the communication school in a series of dances given for those among them who reveled in joy and jive. Great word. I love it. A very well-rounded plan, or as those addicted to hep talk would exclaim, solid. All this parade reporter could squeeze from a graduate concerning the school was one sentence. Gee, I wish I were back there. I love that. I'm going to end it right there, guys. That must have been an article she had written for her college newspaper. Love it, love it, love it. All right, there you go, Cancer. Hopefully that helps. All right, Leo, Sun, Moon, Rising, or whichever placements you are following. Reading from Noah Levine's Dharma Punks for you. All right, Spirit, what message do you have for Leo at this time through Dharma Punks? Please and thank you. So you have 3, 3, and 8. Okay, those numbers may be significant to you, especially 3s. And I'm feeling page 113. Just adding that up. I saw those two come together, so. All right. 113. This is from the chapter called Who Killed Bambi? All right. Let's see. It was ramen noodle soup and some fresh vegetables for dinner. I had been attempting to go vegetarian. I was still eating fish sometimes, but I had renounced all the other flesh foods. I also had some fresh sourdough for sandwiches the next day, but thought it would go well with my vegetable noodle soup instead. The fire was blazing, and I got the water boiling quickly, so I added my carrots, onions, and broccoli. The noodles and soup base went in last, and about 5 minutes later, I had a fragrant pot of campfire soup. I let it cool down and then dipped in a piece of bread to get started. My meal tasted incredibly good. I intentionally ate very slowly, trying to taste every bite and remembering to put the spoon down between each mouthful. Some time ago, my dad had been speaking with me about mindful eating. Maybe that's something you might be wanting to do or wanted to try or had heard about it, or maybe that might be a confirmation for you at this time to try something different, okay? Hadn't he said that he thought it could be as powerful of a practice as sitting meditation? The taste of the noodle soup under the evening sky certainly brought me into the present moment as much as paying attention to my breath ever had. I was just about finished eating, and the twilight was well set in. Something was moving nearby, rustling in the bushes on the hillside above me. I looked up and saw a deer, carefully picking its way down the slope. I became very still, sitting, watching the deer as she continued her walk down the hillside. She stopped a couple of times to nibble at some leaves or to straighten up, lifting her head to listen for the sounds of a possible predator. My mind was strangely calm. I was amazed at the sight of the lone deer moving toward my camp. I had never been so close to a wild animal before. A couple of experiences I had as a kid flashed into consciousness. Smelling the stench of deer jerky hanging to dry in the garage of our neighbor's house in Santa Fe when I was 7, and when I was 11, being sickened by the sight of a deer killed and gutted by my friend Ricky's father in Colorado. Now, looking at that exquisite, delicate living being that was almost at my tent, those disturbing memories evaporated. It seemed like she was playing some sort of game to see how close she could get without freaking out and running off. I sat as still as I possibly could, watching and waiting to see when she would realize that I was sitting there, then turn and take off, back up the hill to find the rest of her family. She continued past my tent, sniffing around while carefully avoiding the fire pit, then walked right up to the table where I was sitting. She was only a couple feet away. She stopped and looked directly at me. For a moment, I had no idea what to do. I was mesmerized by the dreamlike experience of being face to face with this being. Then, very slowly, I picked up a piece of bread and held it out. My palm was flat, and the bread just sat there as an offering on my outstretched hand. She tensed for a moment, but instead of making a break for it, she took a step forward, and her wide eyes relaxed. She sniffed at the piece of sourdough I was offering her. She made the final step and was right before me, within arm's reach. She began to nibble on the bread in the palm of my hand. I could feel her little lips scraping my hand as she ate. I was perfectly still, but my heart was racing with excitement by then. I was amazed at the unfolding of the scenario. I couldn't believe that it was happening to me, of all people. I decided to try and take a step further. Slowly, I reached up with my other hand and lightly touched her head and nose. She continued to eat, not seeming to mind or even really notice that I was stroking her gently between the eyes. They sparkled in the dim light, and her fur felt silky. I tried to pet her ears as well, but she shook her head. She finished eating her piece of bread and, without even looking at me again, walked off just as slowly as she had approached. I watched her until she disappeared over the crest of the hill. For a long time I sat contemplating what had just happened, wondering what to do next. I found myself making up all kinds of elaborate fantasies, that she must have been sent by God to tell me that everything was going to be all right, that I had been forgiven for all of my early life's violence against nature. Later that night, when I was tucked snugly into my sleeping bag, I reflected on the stories my father had told me of Ram and Sita when I was a child, and I remembered the tale of the evil demon king Ravana, who had one of his sidekicks turn himself into a golden deer to lure Ram and Laxman away from Sita so that she could be kidnapped. I recalled the childhood stories of Bambi and Thumper, how I had taken to saying I wanted to burn the fields of serenity and kill Bambi. No, I didn't want to kill Bambi anymore. I didn't want to kill anything anymore. I just wanted to live my life and let go of the past. There you go, Leo. Hope that helps. Maybe deers might be significant to you, as well as maybe, trying a new practice, okay? Maybe just being mindful of your environment as well, okay? There may be some message there that's going to be significant. All right, there you go. All right, Virgo, sun, moon, rising, or whichever placements you are following at this time. We're going to read from Dharma Punks for you, see what message Spirit has through this book. All right, Spirit, what message do you have for our Virgos at this time, please and thank you. All right. You have 7, 8, 9. Wow, some progression going on here. Definitely not that many pages, I'll tell you that right now. So let me feel it out here. All right, I am feeling 159. Yeah, that's it. All right. This is from the chapter called Wanderlust. Okay. Steve and I spent several days at one ashram where a female guru named Amma G was giving blessings to all the people who came to visit. There were hundreds of people there, and many of them were Westerners, some Americans, but mostly Europeans. During darshan, a blessing ceremony that means seeing or being seen by a saint, I waited in line for a very long time, and when it was my turn to get my blessing, the guru took my head in her hands and whispered something in my ear, gave me a hug, and then it was over. I had a feeling of new energy in my body and felt kind of high on the experience. I didn't really know what it was that she had said in my ear, but it didn't matter. This was my first experience with a living Hindu guru, and it was really interesting, but by no means transformational. It was a lot like when I had experienced with Matthew. I was still feeling pretty burned by that whole experience. I knew that just because someone has some spiritual energy or powers doesn't necessarily mean all that much. After visiting a bunch more temples, ashrams, caves, mountains, and holy sites, I said farewell to Steve and left the south, taking a 2-day train ride to the north that landed me in Varanasi, the holiest city in India. Varanasi is built on the banks of the Ganges River and is said to be the best place to die and or be cremated so that your ashes may be spread in the river. I spent a few days in Varanasi watching the ceremonial burning Gats. There you go. That H looks like an N. So gnats might be a significant thing at this time for you. Where all of the families come to have their loved ones cremated. The bodies are burnt out in the open on the banks of the river, and the Hindu priest oversees all of the funerals, saying prayers and doing traditional chants and rites. It smelled like a huge human barbecue pit. There were wild dogs and cows everywhere, and the grief of thousands washed through those alleys every day. I was told that in the old days, if a man died, his widow was supposed to throw herself onto the funeral pyre and join him in the next world. I didn't know what to make of all of that. It seemed strange and inconsistent with what I thought I knew about Hinduism. I was beginning to see that what I knew and what there was to know were very different. In Varanasi, I began to feel more like the tourist I really was. I was just looking at everything, not really connecting with anyone or anything. It was humbling. And I'm going to leave it there for you. That may mean something to you, okay, at this time. Have a good one. All right, Libra, sun, moon, rising. Let's see what message Spirit has for you through Homer's The Odyssey. Please and thank you, Spirit. All right. Just making sure. You have 3, 12, and 11 here. Those may be significant numbers. And I'm feeling 332. 332. All right. All right. Oh, perfect. Book 15. The prince set sail for home. All right. There's an island, Syri, you may have heard of it, off of I'm going to totally botch these names, Ortygia, out where the sun wheels around. Not so packed with people, still a good place though, fine for sheep and cattle, rich in wine and wheat. Hunger never attacks the land, no sickness either, that always stalks the lives of us poor men. No, as each generation grows old on the island, down Apollo comes with his silver bow, with Artemis, and they shoot them all to death with gentle arrows. 2 cities there are that split the land in half, and over them both my father ruled in force, or Menes' son Cetheus, a man like a deathless god. One day a band of Phoenicians landed there, the famous sea dogs, sharp bargainers too. The holds of their black ship brimful with a horde of flashy baubles. Now my father kept a Phoenician woman in his house, beautiful, tall, and skilled at weaving lovely things, and her rascal countrymen lusted to seduce her, yes, and lost no time. She was washing clothes when one of them waylaid her bedside, their ship, in a long, deep embrace that can break a woman's will, even the best alive. And then he asked her questions. Her name, who was she, where did she come from? She waved at once to my father's high-roofed house. But I'm proud to hail from Sidon paved in bronze, she said. And Arabaius was my father, a man who rolled in wealth. I was heading home from the fields when Taphian pirates snatched me away, and they shipped and sold me here to this man's house. He paid a good stiff price. The sailor, her secret lover, lured her on. Well then, why don't you sail back home with us? See your own high house, your father and mother there. They're still alive and people say they're rich. Now there's a tempting offer, she said in haste. If only you sailors here would swear an oath, you'll land me safe at home without a scratch. Those were her terms, and once they vowed to keep them, swore their oaths they'd never do her harm, the woman hatched a plan. Now, not a word. Let none of your shipmates say a thing to me. Meeting me on the street or at the springs, someone might go running off to the house and tell the old king. He'd think the worst, clap me in cruel chains, and find a way to kill you. So keep it a secret, down deep, get on with buying your home cargo quickly. But once your holds are loaded up with goods, then fast as you can, send the word to me over there at the palace. I'll bring you all the gold I can lay my hands on, and something else I'll give you in the bargain, fare for passage home. I'm nurse to my master's son in the palace now, such a precious toddler, scampering round outside, always at my heels. I'll bring him aboard as well. Wherever you sell him off, whatever foreign parts, he'll fetch you quite a nice price. Bargain struck, back the woman went to our lofty halls, turn the page, and the rovers stayed on with us 1 whole year, bartering, piling up big hoards in their hollow ship. And once their holds were loaded full for sailing, they sent a messenger fast to alert the women. This crafty bandit came to my father's house, dangling a golden choker linked with amber beads, and while the maids at the hall, my noble father kept on fondling it, dazzled, feasting their eyes and making bids. He gave a quiet nod to my nurse. He gave her the nod and slunk back to his ship. Grabbing my hand, she swept me through the house, and there in the porch she came on cups and tables left by the latest feasters. Father's men of council just gone off to the meeting grounds for full debate. And quick as a flash, she snatched up 3 goblets, tucked them in her bosom, whisked them off, and I tagged along, lost in all my innocence. The sun sank, the roads of the world grew dark, and both on the run, we reached the bay at once, where the swift Phoenician ship lay set to sail. Handing us up on board, the crewmen launched out on the foaming lanes, and God, such a wonderful way to say the ocean. And Zeus sent wind astern. 6 whole days we sailed, 6 nights, nonstop, and then, when the god brought on the 7th day, Artemis showering arrows came and shot the woman headfirst into the bilge. She splashed like a diving tern, That's a bird. And the crewman heaved her body over. A nice treat for the seals and fish, but left me all alone, cowering, sick at heart. Until at last the wind and current bore us on to Ithaca, here where Laertes brought me with his wealth, and so I first laid eyes on this good land. I'll leave it there, Libra. That may mean something. Maybe a barter or an agreement go horribly awry, and it seems reasonable, right? And perhaps it's just because it wasn't time yet. That's what the gods and goddesses represent, coming in to interrupt that, right? It's not divine timing. There's going to be a tower moment if that happens, right? So don't force things. Whatever it is, you might be in a situation or around a situation that's trying to force divine will or something to that effect, okay? All right, Scorpio, Sun, Moon, Rising. I'm going to read from Our Lives in Poetry, my family's little collection of writings and things. All right, Spirit, what page do you want for Scorpio? What are we reading? What's the message? All right, you have 4, 10, and 12 as significant numbers. And I'm feeling 134. On page 134, we have a poem chosen by one of my aunts, by Rainer Maria Rilke, as once the winged energy of delight. And this one is a short one, okay? So go follow your other placements as well. As once the winged energy of delight, by Rainer Maria Rilke. As once the winged energy of delight carried you over childhood's dark abysses, now beyond your own life build the great arch of unimagined bridges. Wonders happen if we can succeed in passing through the harshest danger, but only in a bright and purely granted achievement can we realize the wonder. To work with things in the indescribable relationship is not too hard for us. The pattern grows more intricate and subtle, and being swept along is not enough. Take your practice powers and stretch them out until they span the chasm between two contradictions, for the God wants to know himself in you. Love it. Love it, love it, love it. There you go, Scorpio. Right, Sagittarius. All right, we're doing Dharma Punks. That's right, for our fire signs by Nola Bean. Okay, so let's grab our dice. What's the message for Sagittarius, Sun, Moon, Rising, or whichever placements they're following? Please and thank you, Spirit. You have 5, 8, and 3. I'm feeling, oh my goodness, I'm feeling 88. All right. That's great. 8s may be significant to you. And it's a short passage. This is from the chapter titled, Serve the Truth, Defy the Lie. And since, all right, here we go. It's literally just 2 small paragraphs. I was kind of crazy for a few days after the funeral, annoyed by all of the dramatic attitudes of the people in the meetings who hardly even knew him. I walked out of meetings as if I had walked out of his funeral. It took about a week before I could feel the sadness of his loss. It was when I was alone in my car listening to Suicidal Tendencies, his favorite band, that I began to realize how much I was going to miss him, and how much it had meant to me to have him around. As each of my friends have died, so has a part of me, my past. This time, too, I was left here to deal with the world and all of life's difficulties. I felt totally alone and friendless, with Toby still getting high and all the others spread out across their lives. So a transitional time, okay? No, if you can sympathize with that, you are not alone. Go within, find what you need. Sometimes it just takes having a clearing of life to know that, right? Or to at least be guided towards that. You know, there's something else, some activity, something your spirit wants you to try out, right? And you'll meet new people. Not all is lost. All right, there you go. All right, Capricorn, Sun, Moon, Rising, whichever placements you are following. Yes, for Earth signs, we're also doing Dharma punks. All right, by Noah Levine. All right, Spirit. Which section do you want Capricorn to hear at this time that may resonate for their situation? Could be confirmation. We'll never know. Please and thank you. All right. Ooh, you have 2 10s and a 4. Okay. 10s may be significant at this time, specifically the number 1010. Okay. So go look up that meaning. And I'm feeling actually to combine the 2 10s, break them down to 2 for 24. 24 may be significant. Okay, interesting. This is, pardon my French, from the chapter called Fuck Authority. This is in the earlier part of the book where he starts talking about his punk rock life. So let's see where we're at here. Page 24. The next week, Toby and I brought some other skaters from the point with us to the show. Joe, who had helped with the flyers, and Rick, another kid from the neighborhood who went to school with Joe and Toby. We all took the bus downtown, but this time we brought our skates with us for after the show. Joe and Toby waited at the Metro while I took Rick with me up to the top of the mall to try and get some acid. At the little park at the top of the Pacific Garden Mall, there were about a dozen hippies hanging out. As we approached, several of them asked what we were looking for. We need some doses, I said. A crazy-looking hippie with wild eyes and a dirty face brought us to the corner of a park behind a big redwood tree, where he pulled out a whole sheet of orange sunshine LSD. He told us that he had eaten half a sheet himself last week and that he was just beginning to come down. We bought 4 hits for $4 each. After he gave us our hits, he chewed up the rest of the sheet. I couldn't understand how anyone could eat so much acid without dying. We went around the corner to try and get some weed. Rick bought a dime bag from some Rasta, and we sat on the stairs by the clock tower putting the acid and weed into a cigarette pack. All of a sudden, a cop walked up and said, "Hey, boys, what are you guys doing down here?" We're just waiting for some friends," I replied. Rick started shaking his head. He was so scared. The cop asked how old we were, and then he confiscated the cigarette package. He found the weed, but rather than busting us, he just poured the buds onto the sidewalk and ground them into dust with his big pig boots. I gave him a fake name and said I didn't have any ID because I knew if he found out that I was already on probation, he would arrest us for sure. He let us go and warned us not to come around there anymore. I was so relieved that he didn't arrest us that I didn't even care that we had just lost $30 in drugs. That's a lot of money, too, but at least we weren't going to juvie hall. After he destroyed our weed, he threw the cigarette package into a nearby trash can. He hadn't discovered the acid that was tucked into the cellophane wrapper, and I wanted to retrieve it. But he waited for us to leave, so we went around the block and came back and grabbed the cigarette package out of the trash. The cop was gone, but my heart was racing so fast I started sweating. It was worth the risk of going back to juvie, though. It was worth all of it to get high, to eat some acid, and see a punk show. Toby and I were bummed that we hadn't gotten any pot, and we only had $8 left between us, so we shoulder-tapped a 12-pack of cheap beer and bought some more cigarettes. We sat under the bridge where we had seen a couple having sex the week before. We had 3 beers each and got pretty buzzed. When we were in line at the club, we all took the hit of acid. It was Joe's and Rick's first acid trip and first punk show. At the door, the girl said I was allowed only 2 guests, not 3. I told her we didn't have any money left, and she let us all in with only a slight bit of annoyance. It was that easy back then. Okay. We stashed our skates in the office where I had picked up the flyers. Joe and Rick were obviously nervous, and so was I, but when the music started, they had their first taste of the pit. Soon they, too, found a home. And by pit, we mean circle pit. You know, the blender of emotions at a show. Okay. The first band that played was called The Faction. The guitar player was a pro skater named Steve Caballero. We had all heard of this band, and of course we all knew of Cab. He was a legend on the skateboard. I was a little surprised that the turnout for this show was a lot smaller than last time. The Faction was great, but there was no pit, and we weren't about to be the ones starting it. When Blast came on, it seemed like people came out of the walls. All of a sudden, the room was filled with punks, skaters, skins, and a few metalheads. I was feeling comfortably numb with my 3 beers and my 1 tab of LSD. Clifford, the singer for Blast, came out again, and nothing but shorts. And this time the set was by screaming out over the crowd, "Start the machine." Even before the band could begin its musical assault, people began jumping up and down, and the pit had already started churning. It was as if just the mere presence of these local legends was enough to incite a riot. All right, I'm going to stop it there. Go follow your other placements, see if there's anything that might resonate, all right? All right, Aquarius, air sign. We're doing Homer's The Odyssey. Okay. All right, Spirit. What do you have for Aquarius, Sun, Moon, Rising, or any placement they're following at this time? Please and thank you. Insight, confirmation, heads up, something to think about. What? All right. 11, 8, and 3. In fact, when you put the 8 and 3 together, you get another 11. So 11, 11 might be significant at this time, okay? I'm feeling 382. All right. There we are. Book 18, The Beggar King of Ithaca. Let's see. Then, leaving her well-lit chamber, she descended. Not alone, 2 of her women followed close behind. That radiant woman, once she reached her suitors, drawing her glistening veil across her cheeks, paused now where a column propped the sturdy roof, with one of her loyal handmaids stationed either side. The suitors' knees went slack, their hearts dissolved into lust. All of them lifted prayers to lie beside her, share her bed. But turning toward her son, she warned, "Telemachus, your sense of balance is not what it used to be. When you were a boy, you had much better judgment. Now that you've grown and reached your young prime, and any stranger, seeing how tall and handsome you are, would think you the son of some great man of wealth. Now your sense of fairness seems to fail you. Consider the dreadful thing just done in our halls, how you let the stranger be so abused. Why, suppose our guests sitting here at peace, here in our own house, were hauled and badly hurt by such cruel treatment. You'd be shamed, disgraced in all men's eyes." "Mother," Telemachus paused, then answered, "I cannot fault your anger at all of this. My heart takes note of everything, feels it too, both the good and the bad. The boy you knew is gone. But how can I plan my world in a sane, thoughtful way? These men drive me mad, hedging me round, right and left, plotting their lethal plots, and no one takes my side. Still, this battle between the stranger and Aries hardly went on as the suitors might have hoped. The stranger beat him down. If only Father Zeus, Athena, and Lord Apollo, these gallants now, this moment, here in our house, were battered, senseless, heads lolling, knees unstrung. Some sprawled in the courtyard, some sprawled outside, slumped like Iris down at the front gates now, whipped, and his head rolling like some drunk. He can't stand up on his feet and stagger home. Whatever home he's got, the man's demolished." So Penelope and her son exchanged their hopes as Eurymachus stepped in to praise the queen. "Ah, daughter of Icarius, wise Penelope, if all the princes of Ionian Argos saw you now, what a troop of suitors would banquet in your halls. Tomorrow at sunrise, you surpass all women in build and beauty, refined and steady mind." I'll leave it there, all right? Go follow your other placements. From what it sounds like, there may be bad judgment calls causing problems for groups of people. That's something to that effect is what that story is kind of indicating, okay? And more to come, apparently. So, like, there may be in the middle of a conflict or something, all right? All right, Pisces, Sun, Moon, Rising, whichever placements you are following at this time, and by all means, follow your other placements if it resonates or you need a little bit more insight. Biblio is always kind of fun. For our water signs, we are doing Our Lives in Poetry. This is a family collection of books, so of poems and other things as well. All right. Make sure we don't go overboard on the page numbers. All right, Spirit, for our Pisceans, what do you have? What's the message? Confirmation, insight, ping, whatever, because it could be anything. Your numbers are 6, 7, and 10. They may be significant at this time, okay? I'm just taking a gander at the dice, closing my eyes and seeing which ones I can put together, right? How to arrange them. What is Spirit telling me? Add 7 and 6. Okay. That's 13. That may mean something to you. 41. All right. Okay. What's on page 41? All right. As a friend of the family had chosen a poem by William Blake called The Tiger. All right. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forest of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain, in what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? I had a few little things pop up visually for you here, okay? Quite a few. Hand, I saw the Hamsa, okay, so a protective symbol. Eye, immediately third eye, okay? So they may be having something to do with protection of your upper chakras, cleansing and protecting them. Maybe even messages coming through that may need to be guarded. It might be secrets being sent to you through the divine, okay, that only you will know about. Some seriously high priestess kind of vibes here, okay? Thinking in the gray area in between them two pillars, right? Another thing that popped up immediately was fire. And I would go check out anywhere you have fire in your chart, okay? Whichever fire signs, go listen to those. That may have some significance for you as well. And heart chakra popped up, color green specifically, because that's attached to the heart chakra. So there may be something to do with cleansing out the heart chakra. And in what furnace was thy brain? I immediately thought of like a very impetuous ego, right? Because the fire energy is kind of impetuous, and brain would be your physical mental body, right? Where that houses your ego. So there may be something having to do with an energy that you're dealing with that might be impetuous, maybe even arrogant a little bit, okay? I don't know if that has any significance to you, but go check your other placements, all right? There you go. Have a good one. Bye.